Welcome back, Bulldogs. Let's look at the table average rate of change U tries. So we're down to problem 10 on the guided notes. So looking at this first table, I am increasing by 1 in my X values, and then let's look at my Y values. Let's see what's happening there. So 16 to 8, that is a difference of 8. I'm just going to do absolute difference here. 8 to 4, that's a difference of 4. 4 to 2, that's a difference of 2. And 2 to 1, that's a difference of 1. Well, if I'm looking at that, 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And 8 times 2 is 16. So that's increasing by a multiple instead of just adding or subtracting. Because of that, well, technically it's decreasing because we're going down. But if we're looking from bottom to top, it's increasing. So therefore, this function is an exponential function. All right, so let's look at the average rate of change between these intervals. So when x equals -4, y equals 16. And when x equals -2, y equals 4. Let's do our slide here and let's find our differences. So I have 16 minus 4 in my numerator, -4 minus 2 in my denominator. 16 minus 4 is 12. -4 minus 2 is -6. So this is going to give us an average rate of change of -2 for the first interval. Second interval, we're going from -1 to 0. When x equals -1, y equals 2. And when x equals 0, y equals 1. So let's make our slide here. Subtract. So we've got our change in y's on top. So I've got 2 minus 1 in my numerator, and then -1 minus 0 in my denominator. 2 minus 1 is 1, and then -1 minus 0 is -1, giving us an average rate of change of -1 for the second interval. -2 does not equal -1, so therefore our average rate of change is varying for this function. Let's look at function 11. Notice that our x values are increasing by 1, but let's see the differences in our y values. It looks like -1 to 4, that's a decrease by 3. -4 to 7 is a decrease by 3. -7 to 10 is a decrease by 3. And -10 to 13 is a decrease by 3. So every time that we increase our x values by 1, we decrease our y values by 3. So it's a negative slope, but it's a linear function because it doesn't change. Let's double check that by finding our average rates of change here. So when x equals -1, y equals 4. And when x equals 0, y equals -7. So I've got -1 to 4. Or excuse me, -1, 0, and -4 to, or excuse me, 4 to -7. So our numerator difference is 4 minus -7. And our denominator difference is -1 minus 0. -4 minus -7 is the same thing as 4, excuse me there, 4 plus 7. So that's going to give me 11 divided by -1. It should be -4. I apologize there, guys. So -4 plus 7, that should give us 3. That makes more sense. And -1 on bottom. 3 divided by -1 is -3. for that average rate of change. All right, let's look at the second average rate of change. So I've got 1 to 2. When x equals 1, y equals negative 10. And when x equals 2, y equals negative 13. All right, so let's do our slide here. Our numerator is going to be negative 10 minus a negative 13. And our denominator is going to be 1 minus 2. Negative 10 minus negative 13 is the same thing as saying negative 10 plus 13, which is going to give us a positive 3 on top, and 1 minus 2 is negative 1 on bottom. 3 divided by negative 1 is negative 3. Negative 3 equals negative 3, so therefore this has a constant rate of change. All right, let's look at the last function. So table 12. Every time x increases by 1 here, let's see what happens to our y's. So 3 to 0, that's a change of 3. 0 to negative 1, that's a change of 1. And I'm just going to look at the absolute values here. Negative 1 to 0, that's a change of 1. And 0 to 3, that's a change of 3. So that's symmetric there. If it's symmetric, then the function is going to be a quadratic function. And let's find my average rates of change. So when x equals negative 6, y equals 3. And when when x equals negative 5, y equals 0. Let's solve for the average rate of change there by finding my differences in my x and y values. So I have 3 minus 0 divided by negative 6 minus negative 5. So that's going to give me 3 divided by negative 1, which is negative 3, for my first average rate of change. And let's look at the second interval. When x equals negative 3, y equals 0. And when x equals negative 2, y equals 3. So I'm going to find the differences here. Remember, your x values are on your left, your y values are on your right. So for my numerator, I've got 0 minus 3. And that's divided by negative 3 minus negative 2. That's going to give me negative 3 divided by negative 1, which is a positive 3. All right, negative 3 does not equal 3, so therefore this is a varying function. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you today. Have a great Bulldog day.